Welcome back to our channel, where we dive into the darkest corners of the human experience. Today, we have a chilling episode lined up for you. Welcome back to our channel, where we dive into the darkest corners of the human experience. Today, we have a chilling episode lined up for you. Unseen Terrors, 5 Creepy Tales. These true stories remind us that sometimes the scariest monsters are hiding in plain sight. So, sit back, turn off the lights, and let's dive in. Our first story is about Claire, who had just moved into a charming old house in a quiet town. It was her dream home, but little did she know, it held a dark secret. From the moment she moved in, Claire felt a strange presence. At first, it was subtle. A creaking floorboard here, a shadowy figure in the corner of her eye there. But soon, things escalated. Doors would slam shut on their own, and she would wake up to find furniture rearranged. One night, Claire decided to set up a camera to catch the culprit. What she found was more terrifying than she could have imagined. The footage showed a ghostly figure moving through her home, its eyes glowing in the dark. But the most chilling part, it was watching her as she slept. Desperate for answers, Claire researched the house's history and discovered that a previous owner had died under mysterious circumstances. Some say he never left. Claire eventually moved out, but she still wonders if the unseen guest is waiting for the next unsuspecting tenant. Our second story takes us to a small town where a young man named Jack was taking his nightly jog through the park. It was his routine, a time to clear his mind. But one night, he encountered something that would haunt him forever. As he ran, Jack noticed a man standing perfectly still under a flickering street lamp. The man was facing away, but something about him was deeply unsettling. Jack tried to ignore him and continued running, but when he glanced back, the man had turned around. The man had no face, just a smooth, featureless surface where his features should have been. Paralyzed with fear, Jack watched as the faceless man started moving towards him, gliding silently across the ground. Jack sprinted home and locked himself inside. For days, he was too scared to leave his house. When he finally mustered the courage to return to the park, the faceless man was gone. But Jack knew he was still out there, somewhere, waiting. Our final story is about Sarah, who loved to collect antiques. One day, she found an old mirror at a flea market. It was beautifully crafted, but the vendor seemed eager to get rid of it, selling it for a ridiculously low price. Sarah should have known something was wrong. Sarah hung the mirror in her living room, but from the moment it was in her home, strange things began to happen. She would catch glimpses of movement in the reflection, even when she was alone. Objects in the mirror seemed to shift positions. One night, as Sarah was about to go to bed, she glanced at the mirror and saw something that made her blood run cold. Her reflection was smiling back at her, but she wasn't. Frozen in fear, she watched as the reflection reached out and pressed its hand against the glass. Terrified, Sarah covered the mirror with a sheet and moved it to the basement. But the nightmares continued. She could hear whispers and feel cold hands brushing against her skin in the dead of night. Finally, she got rid of the mirror, but the fear never left her. Sarah now lives in constant dread, haunted by the memory of the mirror's sinister reflection. Our next story takes us to a remote stretch of highway where a truck driver named Tom had a night he would never forget. Tom was used to long hauls and lonely roads. But one foggy night, he encountered something that would haunt him forever. As Tom drove through the thick fog, he saw a figure standing by the roadside, thumbing for a ride. Against his better judgment, he decided to pull over. The hitchhiker was a young woman, drenched and shivering. She thanked Tom and climbed into the passenger seat. She introduced herself as Emily and told Tom she needed to get home. They chatted for a while, and Tom felt a strange connection to her. But as they approached her destination, Tom noticed something peculiar. Emily seemed to be getting more and more transparent. By the time they reached her address, Emily had completely vanished. Tom was left alone in his truck, bewildered. Determined to find out what happened, he went to the house she had mentioned. An elderly woman answered the door, and when Tom described Emily, the woman broke down in tears. Emily had been her daughter, who died in a car accident on that very stretch of highway years ago. Since then, she had been appearing to drivers, trying to find her way home. Tom drove away, the image of the vanishing hitchhiker forever etched in his mind. Our final story is about a little girl named Lucy and a doll that was anything but ordinary. Lucy's grandmother had given her the doll, saying it had been in the family for generations. It was a beautiful porcelain doll with lifelike eyes and an unsettlingly realistic smile. At first, Lucy loved the doll, named Annabelle, and took it everywhere. But soon, strange things began to happen. Lucy's parents would hear whispers coming from her room at night, and objects would move on their own. Lucy claimed Annabelle was talking to her, telling her secrets. One night, Lucy's mother woke up to find the doll standing at the foot of her bed, staring at her with those lifelike eyes. She screamed, waking up the whole house. Lucy insisted that Annabelle had moved on her own, but her parents didn't believe her. Things escalated when Lucy started having violent outbursts, claiming that Annabelle was telling her to do bad things. Desperate, her parents locked the doll in the attic. But the disturbances continued. Strange noises, cold spots, and an overwhelming sense of dread. Finally, they called a priest to bless the house. During the blessing, the doll seemed to come alive, shaking and rattling in its box. The priest took the doll away, claiming it was possessed by a malevolent spirit. Lucy's family moved away soon after, but the legend of the cursed doll lived on. These tales remind us that sometimes the past has a way of reaching out from beyond the grave. Thank you for joining us for these spine-chilling stories. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more eerie content. Until next time, stay spooky.